What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Nerds podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. I'm Brock Bierman, alongside, as always, with my boy Dawson Livingston. Another fun week of NFL football. Some good games. Honestly, the noon tap was really good. A lot of close games. A lot of games that I wasn't really expecting to be close. There were some upsets, I feel like, at least when you look at the records and everything. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talk about this. We'll, of course, get into our player of the week and power rankings, as always. And then we'll also have our top five list. I think we might start doing something where we always do a top five of something random involving sports or just something in general. This week, we're going to talk about top five teams we love to hate the most, or just teams we love to hate. But Dawson, how are we doing? Your Hawks were on a bye week. Was it a little bit more of an enjoyable weekend knowing that you could watch just college football without having to worry about who wins and loses?
Yeah, it was nice. I will say, I'm sure you're going to talk about it later in the week with Chase, but that Alabama Georgia game, that was honestly one of the better games I think I've ever watched.
That was electric. I'm not gonna lie. The people I was with, we did not watch a lick of that game until the Cyclone game was over. We had, I know you can do the multicast, and we did the multicast for the Cyhawk game, and I absolutely hated it.
It's just too much going on for me, bro.
It's fun when you're not watching a game you have to that you're invested in. So I was like, no, I had the remote. I'm not sure why I had the remote because it's not my family or anything. But I put full screen for Iowa State. We didn't watch a lick of the Georgia game, and we were like, oh my gosh, Alabama's killing them. There's no way we're going to even watch this. And then after Iowa State, they finished up their 20-0 win against Houston. I looked at my phone. I was like, holy crap, Georgia's coming back. This is a game now. And then we turned it on right as Georgia scored, and we're like, oh my gosh, they just took the lead. And then I still think it's kind of funny that they led for a total of 13 seconds. Sorry, Buffalo Bill fans, but Alabama literally turns around and throws a touchdown the next play. Jalen Milroe is really impressive of a player. And then the receiver, obviously, who's only 17 years old that everybody's talking about. He had on, you see his nose tape or whatever that said kill everybody on?
Yeah.
That guy is a dog, and he's only 17 years old, and which is amazing.
He doesn't turn 18 until February. So when he is draft eligible in 3 years, he won't be 21 till after his rookie year, I think.
Huh. He's like an NBA player where if he wins the Super Bowl, he can't celebrate with the champagne.
Right. Jackson Holiday with the Orioles when they clinched the division, and he had his own little corner.
Yep. But back on the NFL side of things, it was a very fun weekend. I'm not going to lie. Feel like this week showed a lot for certain teams on whether or not they're actually going to be legit contending for a Super Bowl or even a playoff spot. And I'm looking forward to get into it. Let's first get off the show running with our players of the week. I will start first. I have Nico Collins for the Texans. Some people on fantasy that I know of played against the team that had Nico Collins, and I feel bad for them, especially if it's a point per reception league, because 12 receptions for 151 yards and 1 touchdown. Whew, what a performance by him. Didn't fix the graphic, of course, not against the Bills. They played, why am I blanking who they played now?
Texans played the
Jaguars, yeah, which I want to get into that game because I feel like that game shouldn't have been close. But anyways, Nico Collins, 151 yards, 1 touchdown against the Jaguars. Very impressive game by him. He's starting to establish himself as a future elite receiver in the league, and the combination with him and Stroud has worked really well. Diggs is also looking good with the Bills, the Texans. But yeah, for this week, I got Nico Collins. I think this is the first week we both don't have at least one quarterback selected. So,
or a kicker. I guess there was a week where we didn't. I think it was last week. Neither one of us had a kicker, but the first 2 weeks we both picked kickers as one of ours. So,
and I think at least one quarterback was picked each of the last 3 weeks. So, first week we don't have a quarterback selected. So, that's my player of the week. Dawson, let's get to yours.
Yeah, my player of the week this week is going to be Derrick Henry. After watching what he was able to do to that Buffalo defense, that his first carry going for 87 yards and a touchdown. It really reminded me of watching like a old Derrick Henry back in Tennessee. Like just an absolute force to tackle. Had over almost 200 yards, had the one rushing touchdown, and then had a receiving touchdown, and then could have had a third touchdown had he not fumbled it on the goal line, which I think results in Patrick Ricard scoring the touchdown. So Derek could have ended up having 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I was very tempted, this is kind of personal and biased, to put Jahmyr Gibbs as player of the week because I won my fantasy league by 0.1 points because of Jahmyr Gibbs last night. So very tempted to put that. But
did you watch the entire game of the Lions and
yes.
Seahawks? Okay, I went to bed after, I think it was around the 2-minute warning when the Seahawks went for it on 4th down and they didn't convert. Did they get the ball back?
Oh, it was a safety. So, I think if we're talking about the same point.
Yeah.
It was a safety by Detroit. Detroit tried to do a play action and then got sacked in their own end zone.
Okay.
And so Seattle ended up getting the ball back and then drove all the way down to like the 7 or 8 and then went 4 and out.
Because I had DK Metcalf and I was down 1.6 points after that 4th down play. So I was just like, oh, it's over. I can stop watching. They're not going to get the ball back. And then I wake up and I won my fantasy matchup and I was like, what is it? What did I miss something? Did they get the ball back? So, okay, that makes a little more sense. So they get the safety and get the ball back.
Literally by 0.1.
Oh, jeez.
And all because Gibbs got a 4-yard rush instead of a 3-yard rush on like the Lions' last or second to last drive.
My favorite is when quarterbacks take a kneel. In victory formation, you lose points because of that, and someone will end up losing a fantasy matchup because of that. But Derrick Henry and Nico Collins are players of the week. Let's get right into overall just looking at the games first before we get into our power rankings. We start off with a Thursday night game. I think this game, can we get a good Thursday night football game first of all?
Well, I think there's a good one this coming Thursday. It's Bucks and Falcons.
Okay, so that one
I like that one a lot.
I'm looking forward to that one. I didn't watch a single second of the Cowboys Giants game. I'm not gonna lie. I just was not in it. It didn't entice me at all, and it ended up being a close game. Cowboys won by 5 points, which isn't a normal winning margin for NFL football games. 20-15 was the final score. Did you end up watching this game? If so, what were your thoughts on this? It looked like Dak was feeling a little more comfortable in this game versus the previous couple weeks. But does it change your mind at all about this Cowboys team, or are they still kind of just mid?
I got a couple thoughts from this game, and yeah, I did watch this game. Cowboys they're starting to find something on offense. Only scoring 20 against the Giants defense, I don't think it's very good, is a little concerning. But they were able to stuff the run. They only let New York get 26 rushing yards. I think New York's found their next receiver. I think Malik Neighbors is not Odell-esque. Like, obviously not just because they're both from LSU. They're both good receivers in the rookie years. But I think they found their true number one receiver that they've been looking for quite some time. And like Neighbors had 12 receptions, 115 yards on Thursday. So he's really come into his own as the wide receiver 1 for New York. And I don't know if you saw it, but I know Brock doesn't do gambling, but I dabble in it from time to time. The spread was Dallas minus 5.5, and then when Brandon Aubrey missed the field goal with 50 seconds left, it still was a 5-point game. So all the Giants bets hit. And the under hit. That field goal missing. Which I think the majority of the money was on Dallas to cover and the over. And it just, both were wrong.
That's rough.
So, thought that was cool.
Should I feel more confident in my pick as them being in the NFC Championship game or no?
I think this was a step in the right direction. Obviously, you don't want to go down 1-3 to start your year. I think this was a good win. I have some concerns with Dallas's ability to run the ball. I don't doubt them passing the ball whatsoever. I trust CeeDee Lamb. I trust all those receivers. But when it comes to running the ball, like Rico Dowell only had 46 yards on the ground, and then Zeke had 19. They only had 80 yards as a team running the ball, which I'd like that number to be over 100. But it's definitely not like not ensuring, but I wouldn't feel great so far considering there's some other really good NFC teams that I'm sure we're going to talk about later. But it's definitely a step in the right direction for Dallas.
Yeah, there's some really good NFC teams this year. A lot of parity in this league. One of those teams that started off hot, and I mean probably the hottest team in the NFC to start out was the Saints. Now they've dropped 2 straight, losing to their divisional rivals, the Falcons, by 2, thanks to a 58-yard kick from Younghoe Koo, which he was on my fantasy team for a league that I'm in, and he put up 20 points, dude. That dude had I thought about putting him as the player of the week. I ended up not going with him because I thought Nico Collins was definitely deserving of that recognition. But the Falcons now 2-2, same with the Saints, which if you're a Buccaneers fan, which we'll get to the Buccaneers in a little bit, you're probably feeling a little better, but you also have an important matchup versus the Falcons this week. So if you're the Falcons, good win after a close loss where you could have almost beaten the Chiefs, which in my opinion, there are such things as like moral victories, and playing a close game against the Chiefs, no matter what the situation is, that's a moral victory in my opinion. So yeah, their record's 2-2. I feel like they're kind of like a 3-1-ish team. It's just that win against the Chiefs didn't happen, of course. So you're going into a week against Tampa Bay where you can gain all the momentum back into the division by catching a win against Tampa Bay, who would be 3-2 if they fell as well.
Right, and Atlanta would have the head-to-head tiebreaker right now. Obviously, they'll play one more time later in the year, but they'll have the head-to-head over at Tampa Bay as we speak.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie, this was kind of more of what I expected from the Saints. The Saints kind of struggled a little bit more compared to the previous weeks. Alvin Kamara wasn't able to just do whatever he wanted like he did the first 2 games where they put up 40 points, I think, in both of those. Derek Carr wasn't necessarily slinging it as much as he was the first couple weeks as well. I'm not worried about the Saints just because I feel like this is where I kind of expected them to perform. So we'll see if they actually bounce back and get back to where they were the first 2 weeks. I kind of see them plateauing to where they are right now and just being kind of average, maybe being competitive. But still, even being competitive is a little bit better than what I expected from them coming into this season.
Right. I don't think either one of us thought that they would start off 2-0 the way they did. Yeah. Dominating in week 1 and then really controlling the game against the Cowboys in week 2. Now it's kind of like, all right, not the fairy dust, but like they've called their expectations have come back down to earth. Yep. They're not going to be one of the better teams in the NFC, but they'll still be fairly competitive, especially within the division. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
Moving over to the NFC North versus the NFC West, the Chicago Bears get their second win of the year, beating the Los Angeles Rams, who are coming off of a very impressive comeback victory against the 49ers, which is the only win that the Rams have this year, which is kind of funny thinking about it when you look at who was expected to be really good this season, and they have lost to now the Bears, the Cardinals, and the Lions, and their only win is against the 49ers, who a lot of people have picked to go far this season. The Bears rushing attack wasn't terrible for once. And I feel like if Aaron Donald was there, would be a completely different situation. But DeAndre Swift had 93 yards and a touchdown. Caleb Williams, no interceptions, 157 yards and a touchdown. Very not impressive. Good performance for the Bears for a team. Again, they're trying to figure out their offense, I feel like, still. And having a win against a team that just came back against the 49ers is a huge W, but a good win, good performance, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say this is Caleb's best performance so far, but it's definitely the one I enjoyed watching the most, even though, like, stats-wise, I might not back that up. Again, like you mentioned, didn't turn the ball over, didn't have as many yards as I would have thought. He only had 157 passing yards. But I think what really won the game for Chicago was their ability to run the ball, like you said. Swift had almost 100 yards. He had 16 carries on 93 yards, almost 6 yards a carry. Roshan Johnson also got a couple carries with 26 yards per touchdown. So I think if Chicago's able to balance their running and passing attack like this, I think they're going to be a better team moving forward. For the Rams, it sucks as a Rams fan if there are any out there. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nakua. So Stafford's, he's throwing to Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, who I believe is either a late round rookie or an undrafted rookie. Demarcus Robinson, not a whole lot of household names for the Rams right now. And Stafford always is going to keep the Rams within games because he's just that good of a quarterback.
Yep.
But I think for right now, it's going to be a rough one for Rams fans until they either get Kupp or Nakua back.
It sucks that two of the NFC West's best rosters, in my opinion, are dealing with a lot of injuries, and we'll see what the Rams can do from there. They play the Packers at home, but as we know, just because you're playing in Los Angeles, it doesn't mean it's a home game. Literally look at what the Chiefs were able to do against the Chargers. I don't think there was a lick of Charger gear in the stadium that day. But moving over to another NFC North team, when we were talking about the Bears getting a win, man, I think we got to have a real conversation about whether or not the Vikings are legit Super Bowl contenders at this point. Because not only are they winning, but they're having some impressive performances. Granted, this one may not have been their most impressive, as the Packers were able to put up 22 in the fourth quarter, but still being up 28-7 at halftime against the Packers. Jordan Love's back. You can make the excuse that Jordan Love needed to get back into the swing of things, but he had 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. Packers would have come out with a victory. 389, not 289. If Packers would have came up with a victory, probably would have been one of our player of the weeks just because of the great performance that he had. But the Vikings have just an amazing attack on offense, at least a balance of an attack, where they got Aaron Jones that they can rely on the ground, which is funny because he's a former Packer. 93 yards, no touchdowns, but average of 4.2 yards per carry, which is, in my opinion, decent. And then you got Sam Darnold, who had 3 touchdowns, an interception that kind of let the Packers get a little bit of hope in the fourth quarter, but also 275 yards and another impressive performance from Jefferson, who had 85 yards and a touchdown. Vikings defense has also, in my opinion, been playing really well this season so far. Of course, giving up 22 points in the fourth quarter isn't as impressive when you're talking about good defenses, but sometimes that offense can just catch a groove, and the Packers just happen to get on one in the fourth quarter, but the Packers fall in this one 31-29. So coming back to what I said before when we started talking about this game, are the Vikings legitimate Super Bowl contenders in your opinion?
I don't know if I'm ready to put them there. I will say, and I know we're going to talk about it later when we do our power rankings, they're in my top 5 this week after not being in my top 5 the week before. They're playing way better than I would have ever thought as the Vikings have in the past. I know they had that one year, I think 2 years ago, when they went 13-4 or 12-5. But I certainly didn't expect them to start out of the gates 4-0, especially like you said, they're beating good teams too. It's not like they're beating really bad teams. But I think it tells 2 things for me. It tells me that I don't know if Jordan Love's 100% healthy with him throwing the 3 picks. It also tells me that the Vikings got a tough decision to come in the offseason. I know they drafted McCarthy, but dude, Sam Darnold, I'm going to be honest, the way he's playing, I would sign him and trade McCarthy, if I'm being totally honest. I don't think McCarthy's leading the Vikings out to a 4-0 record. I just don't.
I mean, you got a really good case. I completely forgot that Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions. I only thought he threw 2. But someone was pointing out that we need to stop talking about certain players just being busts right away and start actually looking at the franchises that they were playing for when they get drafted at a high rating. You look at Baker Mayfield getting drafted by the Browns. A lot of people were calling him a bust right after he got traded from them to the Panthers, and ultimately cut from the Panthers, backed up for the Rams 2 years ago, led them on a great fourth quarter comeback drive. Now he's playing for the Buccaneers, has some actual weapons and a decent offense around him, and he's performing real well. I feel like this is another situation. Sam Darnold's in a really good situation now compared to where he was in New York when he was drafted. He has some good receivers, a good offense, a good coaching staff that wants to revolve and create a game plan around him. And I do think learning a little bit under the 49ers offense as well last year as a backup helped him a little. But I feel like these two quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, are a great reason of why you should never just give up on a quarterback as fans and look more at the organizations that have drafted those quarterbacks and what they've done.
Kind of funny that those two quarterbacks you mentioned were in the same draft class. They were 2 picks apart from one another. Obviously, Baker going 1 to Cleveland and Sam going number 3 to New York. I feel like any time the Jets draft a quarterback, I just will not believe in them. I know they have Aaron Rodgers now, but like, I don't know, dude. When they eventually have to draft another quarterback, because I think you and I both realize that Rodgers probably has this year, maybe next year, if he really wants to get after it, and maybe it's just this year. Who knows? But they're going to have to draft a quarterback, and with their track record of drafting quarterbacks within the last 10 years, it's not good. When's the last time? I mean, they had Geno Smith, but he wasn't doing well in New York, and now look at him. That's another one where it's like Geno was in terrible situation with the Jets, bounced around as a backup for a few teams, and then now is leading Seattle to a 3-1 record. I mean, when's the last good quarterback New York has had? Well, under New York, what? Mark Sanchez? The 2 years that he was good
when he brought him to the playoffs, because aren't they the longest drought now in sports
for playoffs? I think so. And I think they made the AFC title game with Sanchez. I think they were a game away from the Super Bowl,
which is crazy to even think about.
Right.
Speaking of another franchise that I feel like just has terrible luck with quarterbacks, the Colts come out with a big victory, but again, similar to the quarterback that they tried to build around the last time, another injury for Anthony Richardson results in Joe Flacco coming in and doing what Joe Flacco has been doing the last couple years anytime he signs with a team and performing 168 passing and 2 touchdowns. And it helps the Colts get a 3-point win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were 3-0 on the season heading into that one. Justin Fields, in my opinion, passing had his best game, and they still lost, which I feel like is actually a fluke loss for the Steelers because they played decently. The rushing attack was not as impressive. Najee Harris wasn't able to do anything. I think Cordell Patterson was able to get more yards than Harris, but I think Patterson got banged up. I can't remember for sure if he got hurt or not, but I swear I saw him walking off the field at one point and he only had 6 carries. So their rushing attack struggled a little bit, but George Pickens, 113 receiving yards. This Steelers offense, while they did lose, has a lot to look forward to because I feel like they played really well in the passing attack, which was their main issue. So if you can fix your main issue and you had a bad performance on the ground, because I feel like their ground attack will be able to recover, this Steelers team has nothing to look at, doesn't have to look at this game as a big disappointment.
Right. I totally agree with you. It definitely was Justin's best passing performance he's had all season. I think this is even more proof for the Steelers that when/if Ruffs comes back healthy, you have to keep Fields in there. Because Fields right now, I think everyone's bought in to what Justin Fields has brought to the Steelers. I'll lead them to a 3-1 record. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he had a turnover this game. Or I'm sorry, he had 1 lost fumble. Okay. Sorry. But he had 300 yards in the air. He had 1 touchdown. Had 2 rushing touchdowns, which he's always going to be able to provide that threat of running with the ball. But yeah, if you're a Steelers fan, definitely not a bad loss by any means, because I think at least I'm higher on the Colts than probably others because of Richardson, but I would look at this.
Or he's questionable, I guess. I don't know if they've said how long he's going to be out. But dude, the Colts, the worst thing they did is because I had that as one of my quad box games on YouTube TV, and he got hurt the first time. He was grabbing his hip. I was like, oh gosh, great. Another injury for a guy that's really good at running the ball on the ground, putting it on the ground, also throwing the ball. So they put him back in, and then they do an RPO where he keeps it right immediately after, and he gets hurt again. Like what? I'm sorry. What was the thought process of that play call?
Yeah, I don't really know. If your quarterback is wincing in pain like he was when he was grabbing his hip, you got to take him out for at least. I would the rest of the drive, maybe even the rest of the
You were in scoring
half.
position. You were going to get points.
Right, and now you're in the situation. I don't know how long he's going to be out, if he's going to be out at all. I'm going to look this actually before I. But yeah, definitely you don't want to put him back in after he's already like in visible pain.
Yeah.
Let me see.
It's just a terrible situation because it's not the same as Andrew Luck because Andrew Luck had different injuries and was more concussion based and why he retired so young. But man, if Anthony Richardson is going to be so banged up, he's not going to be able to be Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, it says Richardson, deep bruise at the top of his hip and pelvis. Good news is it's typically a short-term injury, but can vary in terms of rate of recovery. So, I would assume he's probably out this week, but maybe back the next week.
Week-to-week situation.
Right, yeah. I mean, I would always be cautious, especially when you got a guy like Flacco behind, where it's like, Flacco's going to keep the ship sailing. So, yeah, if you're definitely the Colts, you got to hold Richardson out at least this week and maybe even next week.
Yep. Let's get to some games that we can quickly hit through. Bengals get their first victory, 34-24 against the Panthers. Nothing really too much to talk about unless you got something to mention about this game. Bengals get their first victory in the year. Maybe it's a sign of something good finally happening for Cincinnati, but I don't believe the hype.
No, they played the Panthers, and that's all I got to say.
49ers 30-13 against the Patriots. Brock Purdy, a good performance, as well as Mason on the ground. Mason had 123 yards and a rushing touchdown. Juwan Jennings, another good performance of 3 receptions and 88 yards. Hopefully that's a good sign for the 49ers. They got Deebo back, which is a good thing. And if they can start getting healthy, I feel like it's a good sign for a bright future for them.
Where is Brandon Ayuk? Just where is he?
Yeah.
Because through the first 4 games, he was complaining a lot about his contract, and I haven't really seen much of anything from Ayuk.
Did he ever sign a contract? I can't remember if we talked about that or not. He did?
He did. He signed that. Oh, man. It was 4 years, 120.
I wonder if San Francisco's regretting it.
Yeah.
Other games, Raiders beat the Browns. That game was a throwaway game. I don't think really too many people cared about what happened. A win for Raiders and another loss for Deshaun Watson and Cleveland. Commanders destroy Cliff Kingsbury. Correction, Cliff Kingsbury. That's who my player of the week should have been. I should have changed it to coach of the week. Cliff Kingsbury shows up as the offensive coordinator and absolutely smokes his former team 42-14. Another impressive performance by probably the front runner of Rookie of the Year votes right now in Jaden Daniels. Cardinals struggled on the defensive end. That was probably the first time that their defense really struggled this season, and their offense wasn't able to keep up.
Is Jaden Daniels by far and away the Rookie of the Year right now? Is that like a done deal through 4 weeks?
In my opinion, yes.
I think you could maybe argue Malik Neighbors or Marv.
Yeah.
Man, Jaden Daniels has got to.
The Commanders are 3-1, and
right.
A lot of people are becoming believers in them because of it. It's impressive. Other games, we got the Buccaneers 33 against the Eagles. The Eagles only put up 16 points against Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley still performing very well on the ground for the Eagles, but the Eagles just cannot get over the hump. I'm pretty much throwing away the Eagles and the Cowboys for winning the division, and I'm putting my chips all in on the Commanders.
I don't know if I'll go that far. It's definitely concerning that in the fashion that Philly lost, like losing by 17 points. Granted, me and you both think this is a good Buccaneers team, so It's not like losing to I don't know, the Raiders by a bunch or the Panthers. But certainly, if you're a Eagles fan, it's a little concerning that your offense was only able to put up 16 points against what I don't think is a very good Tampa Bay defense.
Yeah, I agree. Other games, Texans Jags. This game shouldn't have been close, and it was only a 4-point victory, 24-20. The Texans get the victory. C.J. Stroud 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nico Collins had 151 receiving yards. I'm not concerned, but the fact that the Texans kept that close, or the fact that they had to come from behind, it felt like it was not ideal if you're a Texans fan.
No, not really. I will say this. I think C.J. Stroud had his best performance on this past Sunday. 27 for 40, almost 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 75 QBR, which is pretty good. Didn't turn the ball over. It's just right now for Houston, they don't have Joe Mixon right now. So they're running the ball is going to be, they're struggling right now. I mean, their leading rusher was Cam Akers, who I totally forgot was on the Texans, to be fair.
I did too.
Yeah.
Well, so Joe Mixon's hurt, right?
I thought he was.
That's got to be what it is if he's not. Yeah, Joe Mixon was questionable on listed as questionable October 1st, so he must have not have been on their active roster for that game. Right. So I'm not too worried. It's a little interesting though because the Jaguars now fall to 0-4, and they lost by 4 against who I think is a legit Super Bowl contender, depending on how their season rolls out. But we'll see what happens from there. Talking about Super Bowl contenders from the media perspective, the Jets don't even score a touchdown against the Denver Broncos.
Hey, that's Iowa's thing. You can't do that.
Well, Iowa wins when they do that.
True.
The Jets, on the other end, they drop a sad loss. 10-9, the final score. Broncos get the victory. Bo Nix defeats Aaron Rodgers, and we should be having a conversation of if Bo Nix is better than Aaron Rodgers. I'm completely kidding. Bo Nix had 60 yards passing, and they still won that game.
He had 60-yard passing and somehow still had a better QBR than Rodgers.
That's a major cause for concern.
Like, Bo Nix's QBR was 35.5, still below average, but Rodgers was only 31.6, if that tells you anything.
If I'm a Jets fan, I'm freaking out right now because they've had the 2 losses they've had have not been really good at all, and the only wins that they've had are against the Patriots and the Titans.
Also, Breece Hall, buddy, 10 carries, 4 yards. I know you had 2 receptions for 14 yards, but what's that? You got outrushed by your quarterback who tore his Achilles.
I wonder if that hasn't. I didn't watch a lot of this game because, again, 10-9. I'm not going to waste my time watching a 10-9 game. But they realize that they don't have to worry about the Jets' passing attack as much. So I wonder if teams now are just kind of back in the box against Breece because Breece has had some good performance so far. But not a good look if you're the New York Jets. Ravens get a huge win against the Bills, 35-10. I think that we'll look at your power rankings here. I think that drastically affected your power rankings on the Bills, who were, I think, number 2 in your power rankings last week.
They were.
So a very impressive win against the Ravens. They improved to 500. Derrick Henry, like you mentioned, beasting, looking like King Henry in the Titans uniform that we've been waiting for. Speaking of the Titans, 31-12 against the Dolphins. There's not really anything to talk about. Dolphins are lost without a quarterback, and they played Huntley, and yeah. And then the Lions give the Seahawks their first loss of the year. Another, I would say that it was closer than the score says. 42-29 is the final, but I felt like it was impressive that the Lions were able to win this one without having a player lead the entire game on both sides in passing, rushing, or receiving. The Seahawks had the most passing yards by one quarterback. Individual rushing yards, I'm pretty sure Kenneth Walker had the most with 80. I could be wrong. And then Metcalf had 104 receiving yards. So I don't know. Lions were able to put up 42 points without having anybody going completely off.
I disagree. Jared Goff didn't miss a pass and caught a touchdown. That sounds like going off to me.
That's a good point.
If he would have rushed for the touchdown, bro, I don't know how many players have ever done like a trifecta, but that would be insane.
He has 2 rushes for -2 yards.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. David Montgomery gets another touchdown, man. I think he is one away from being on the same level as Jamal Charles in career touchdown for rushing. So he's had a good career. I think we talked about it a little bit last week anyways, but good win for them. Now I want to get to this game. Obviously, I kept this one off because what happened?
No, just I was curious about that. 3 players have done the trifecta since 1970.
Who are they? I'm curious.
LaDainian Tomlinson did it in 2005. Wait, no, hold on. It's happened more than that, actually, now that I say that. Okay. It's happened 11 times. McCaffrey's the most recent one to do it against the Rams. And then LaDainian Tomlinson.
I remember that. I think I remember
Walter Payton did it one time. Who else? The rest of these names, I have no idea who these guys are.
Joe Schmo.
Like, Dan Reeves, Frank Gifford,
Plumbers.
Ray Refreno. Like,
the Plumbers.
That, like, go drop off my mail, buddy.
All right, so getting to the final game I wanted to talk about, because I love getting your perspective, because I do think you bring a good perspective as a fan of this team. The Chiefs get their 4th victory, 4-0 on the year, 17-10 against the Los Angeles Chargers. Had to come back in this one after the Chargers put all 10 of their points up in the first quarter. However, I feel like the biggest talking point of this game is that the Kansas City Chiefs lost another great receiver in Rashee Rice for, I think they confirmed it's a torn ACL. So it's been a rumored torn ACL. So if it's a rumored torn ACL, he's going to be out for a while either way. If it is a confirmed torn ACL, Rashee Rice is done for the year and then some, because who knows what the suspensions that will be upcoming are.
Right. There's a good chance he might not play till next November.
Yeah. So a 7-point lead. So you love, as long as you get a win, you get a win. That's the mindset any fan will have. But you have a close win against the Chargers team that I don't think played as well on the offensive side. What were your thoughts on this game? What are your thoughts on the Rice injury in the receiver room after that? And where do you see the Chiefs going from here?
Yeah, definitely not a great game. Definitely not a great start for the game. Started off with the Carson Steele fumble, and it kind of just all went downhill from there in the first quarter. Then Mahomes obviously threw the pick, which then resulted in the Rashee Rice injury, which, I don't know if you saw the replay. I'm sure you did. It looks really bad. Again, they haven't officially, like, the team hasn't come out with what the injury actually is, but I think me and you both infer that he's out for the year. I have some positive takeaways, though, from this game. Funny enough, even though the offense did not look good at all. Travis Kelce, welcome to the party, buddy. 7 catches and almost 90 yards. It's good to have you. Xavier Worthy was able to get on the board with another touchdown. Kind of one of those vintage Mahomes touchdowns with Tyreek Hill back in 2018, 2019, where he's just going to throw it up 60 yards in the air and Tyreek's going to run under it, and that's what Worthy did. And then probably my biggest takeaway, I think I'm most excited for the rest of the year, Kareem Hunt looked like, not like 2018 Kareem Hunt. He looked good. Way better than I thought he was going to look. Like, once Carson Steele had that fumble early in the game, they kind of just parked Steele for the rest of the game. Yep. And it was kind of the Kareem Hunt show. Samaje Perine got a few carries here and there. But Kareem Hunt had 14 carries for 69 yards and then had 2 catches for 16 yards. I mean, that's way better than I thought he was going to do in his first game back with Kansas City. But I think, obviously, biggest story of this game is whether or not Rashee Rice is going to be out the rest of the year. But as far as Kansas City's wide receiver room, it's not great right now. I would expect them to probably make a move within the next few weeks. Some of the names that are out there that I've seen Amari Cooper with Cleveland. because Cleveland's struggling right now, and Cooper's I think on the last or the second to last year of his deal. Deontay Johnson from Carolina, who I believe is on the last year of his deal, and obviously Carolina's not really going anywhere this year. It's tough. It's tough because Kansas City has the opportunity to do something that no other team has done ever. So I feel like now is the time to make a huge move to try to swing for the fences. But at the same time, I think the Chiefs want to be really, really good for a long time. And I don't know if trading multiple draft picks for midseason receivers really if it's gonna hurt or help them. So that's kind of my final takeaways from that Chiefs game. Good win, but sucks that they lost Rasheed for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's y'all go sign Hakeem Butler, dude.
Kansas City has this. They have a type with receivers, bro. It's got to be little short, fast guys.
But come on.
No, trust me, I'm on board because as an Iowa fan, I saw up and close like how good Hakeem Butler is, and when I hear Brock talk about the XFL at the St. Louis Battlehawks, I know how good he is. Is he a free agent or is he on a practice squad right now?
I think he's on a practice squad. Do you know how that practice squad works? Can like teams just poach people from other teams, or do they have to like agree? Okay, so it's basically free agency, but they're getting paid.
Think of it as like the NBA G League, where like the Rockets could be like, hey, we're gonna sign someone off the Iowa Wolves. And so they can sign him but they have to sign him to the active roster. They can't just sign him from a different team to their G League team. It has to be like, hey, we're signing you to an active roster. So like, if Butler were to join the Chiefs, or if any receiver on a practice squad, aka Kadarius Toney, were to get signed by the Chiefs, they would have to be signed to the active roster immediately. They couldn't just poach him from their practice squad to the Chiefs practice squad.
Okay.
As far as I understand it, I mean, I could be totally wrong on that, but that's the way I understand it.
By the way, if you want to know what it's like working in social media and stuff like that, I am updating a graphic that I put a typo in. I posted a game day graphic for a crew that I help with athletics, and I put Saturday, October 1st instead of Tuesday, October 1st. So I got the day right. I got the wrong day, though, at the same time. So
trust me, I wish it was Saturday, bro.
While we are live here, I'm out here just messing up graphics and stuff. So, no, I'm interested to see what the Chiefs are able to do from here, because I think they might actually utilize some free agency or maybe even the trades, make some trades depending on the situation. If they can find someone to add to their roster. Of course, if they don't feel the need to, don't waste it, because you don't want to make a move that you'll ultimately regret. But I'm not giving up on them, though, because obviously I still think they're pretty good. But let's get into our power rankings for the week. Here's a look at ours from last week. Dawson had Kansas City at 1, Buffalo at 2, Detroit at 3, Philadelphia at 4, and Houston at 5. And then this is Dawson's power rankings for this week, and he has some movement with some teams, some new teams, and some teams that dropped out. So Dawson, the floor is yours to kind of describe your power rankings, your top 5 teams in the league, and your reasonings.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I didn't want to put him in the top 5 or even the top 3 for that matter, the Vikings had to go up. You start off the year 4-0 with the teams they've beaten, you got to move up. I still think Detroit's a better team as we speak. Detroit's only loss is to the 4th ranked team in my power rankings in Tampa Bay. So I feel like that reason alone, and the good performance they had last night, they're going to go up to number 2. Obviously, until Kansas City loses a game, they're going to stay at the number 1 spot for me. Or if one other team looks head and shoulders better than the Chiefs do, then they'll move up. But right now, Kansas City's 1. Detroit looked really good last night. Very confident in them making a deep run in the playoffs. Minnesota, like I said, had to put them up here, starting 4-0. Tampa Bay. I wasn't going to put Tampa Bay in my top 5, but then I saw the way they beat the Eagles by 17 points, and I'm like, Tampa Bay is a very good team so far. Let me see. What is Tampa Bay's loss? They do have a bad loss to... Yeah, that is a bad loss, considering... I mean, I guess Denver's 2-2, but I don't really think Denver is all that good.
Hey, they can win with only throwing 60 yards, so...
Right.
Impressive.
Right. And then in the 5 spot, Buffalo. You had to drop. You were at my number 2 spot last week, and you're lucky. You're lucky the Texans squeaked by against the Jags because Buffalo would have been out of the top 5 with that performance on Sunday night. But again, I'm still a big believer in Buffalo. I still think that they can go far in the playoffs. Yeah, that's my top 5 power rankings this week.
So my power rankings last week looked like this: Kansas City at 1, Buffalo at 2, Minnesota at 3, Philadelphia at 4, and Pittsburgh at 5. And I unfortunately can no longer put Pittsburgh in the top 5 because of that. But I did have 2 teams drop out as well. Here's my power rankings for this week. I have Kansas City at 1. I mean, they're the best team in the league, pound for pound at this point, just record-wise, as well as they're the 2-time defending Super Bowl champs looking for that three-peat. So if they're going to keep winning, they have to stay at number 1. There's no reason to move them down for a close win against the Chargers. I put Minnesota at 2. When you're the last undefeated team not named Kansas City, I feel like you deserve the flowers that comes with being that last team. And so Minnesota, I feel like, deserves to be at number 2 with how they've been playing. Their wins have been impressive. They did almost blow it against Green Bay, and but I still feel like they are a legit team this year. And Sam Darnold fits really well with this system, and I feel like they are perfect in a perfect position to have a good run this regular season. Tampa Bay at 3. The reason I still haven't put Detroit in my top 5, and the reason is because Tampa Bay beat them. And not saying that that's a bad loss, but just because of that head-to-head matchup that they had, I'm going to give them a little bit of leverage. Yeah, did they have a bad loss against the Broncos? Yeah, 26-7, not really a good look. But they have beaten some really good teams. And, I mean, one of them was in my top 5 last week, and that was Philadelphia. They have since dropped out. They have also beaten the Lions, who I've yet to put in my top 5, but Dawson has in his top 5. And then they have also beaten a team that's also in this top 5 list as well, and the Commanders, which I'll get to in a second. At 4, I have the Bills. Not an impressive performance, to say the least, against the Ravens on Sunday night. So I'm just going to drop them down a couple spots. I'm not giving up on them. We'll see what they do this week. And then I got the Commanders. I really do like this team. They have been playing really well. Their offense is flowing. Cliff Kingsbury at the offensive coordinator position, when all he has to worry about is the offense, is dangerous for other opponents in the league. They do have a loss against Tampa Bay. That's why I can't put them over the Buccaneers as of right now. But I'm going to put Washington at 5 because they have wins against the Giants, Bengals, and Cardinals. And not just that, but they've been able to put up some points. And if they're able to put up points while also defeating their teams, their opponents, I mean, there's no point to not put them in the top 5. This week they play against the Browns, so there's not a huge reason on why they won't be in my top 5 next week. The following week, they play the Ravens at Baltimore, and that could be a big way of solidifying their spot in this top 5 or dropping out depending on what happens. If they lose to the Browns, they're out of the top 5, and they probably won't see the top 5 the rest of the year, no matter what their record is. But yeah, I got Washington at 5. So Kansas City at 1, Minnesota at 2, Tampa Bay at 3, Buffalo at 4, and Washington at 5. And yeah, that's pretty much my power rankings. We kind of have similar looks. We both have Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and Minnesota in our top 5. I've got Minnesota and Tampa Bay higher than your rankings, but we also have Buffalo in our top 5 as well. Mm-hmm. The only difference is you got Detroit and I got Washington in my top 5.
I'd like to propose something for our future power rankings. I liked what you said there, where if you lose to the Browns, you're eliminated from power rankings. If you lose to the Panthers, you are eliminated from power rankings for the entire year. I don't care if you finish, where this team's case 14-3. You are done. You are not getting my power rankings. I'm talking to you, Cincinnati Bengals. For the entire year, you will be banned from my power rankings. Or no, who lost the Raiders lost the. What am I saying? I just wanted to crap.
Wait, who are you trying to look for?
Any team that loses to the Panthers is just exiled from my power rankings.
Oh yeah, so
or barely loses to, or like barely beats the Panthers.
So the Raiders,
Raiders, you're done,
and Bengals.
Bengals, you're on the verge. You lose next week, you're definitely done. But yeah, that's all I had.
But yeah, that's our power rankings for right now. Now we'll get to our new little segment, just top 5 of pretty much whatever, depending on the week. So we're going to do a top 5 on our most hated teams or teams we like to hate the most. Dawson will go first. We'll give him, and we'll start out at number 5 for him. Any Philadelphia team, which I'm not disagreeing with, but I'm interested to hear what your reasoning is.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I don't know. Just, I don't really care for Eagles. I'll preface this before I really deep dive into my list. Some of this is like, I hate the teams. Other parts of this is I hate the fans way worse. So I'll explain my reasoning for each. But for this, I hate the fans. Like, I cannot stand a Philly sports fan. I don't like, especially on Twitter, I hate seeing Sixers fans. They just are so annoying. Especially when they're advocating that Embiid is better than Jokic, which I don't even get me started on that. Eagles fans are still complaining about the Super Bowl from 2 years ago when Bradbury clearly held on Juju Smith-Schuster, which always irritates me. I don't really have any bad blood against the Flyers or the Phillies, but it's just the Sixers and the Eagles that are really, really the ones that irritate me.
I mean, if you already got 2 fan bases from the same city that you hate, you're probably going to hate the others if they interact with your team one way or another. Mm-hmm. So I agree. So here's your number 4.
All right. This one had to be done. I'm an Iowa fan. I do not really care for Iowa State fans whatsoever. Granted, there are good Iowa State fans and there's bad Iowa fans. I'll be the first to recognize that. But maybe this is maybe still a little mad from a couple weeks ago, but I had to put Iowa State at number 4.
What happened a couple weeks ago?
Quarterback forgot how to throw football.
Oh.
Well, he did. Well, that's not true because he was throwing it, but just to the wrong team.
And without his laces. And
yeah. Oh my God, dude! Don't even get me started on that, dude. You're taught when you throw football, however old you are taught to throw with laces. And Cade McNamara, buddy, I don't know why you do this. If you're trying to be unique, but he does not use laces at all, and wonders why he can't throw a pass down the field more than 30 yards. I'm not trying to. No, I am. I am trying to throw some shade at Cade. Buddy, use the laces next time you throw a deep pass.
My favorite part is that we're doing a top 5 for your most hated teams. And me being an Iowa State fan, I found a way to manipulate. So all you're doing right now is hating on Iowa more than Iowa State.
Yeah. It's all my hatred from the game a couple weeks ago, bro. It's all coming out right now. But
number 3?
Oh, man. This one, I didn't think when I was making this list would top Iowa State. The more I thought about it, both Big Ten championship games I have been to personally, I've had bad experiences with Michigan fans. The first one, not so bad. The second one, oh man, I hate the maize and blue. I cannot stand this fan base at all. I couldn't stand Harbaugh when he was there. I couldn't stand the fans. I hate that they think they're good every year. When they won the Natty last year, I was devastated because I wanted Washington to win that so bad. But I had to put Michigan here. I had to.
Respect. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of their athletic department as a whole either. A lot of things have went through that department, to say the least. Yeah. Number 2.
This one might shock some people, but I hate interacting with Bills fans on Twitter. I think they're good people, but I still get like tweets and posts about 13 seconds and how the Bills should have won that game. They were the better team. I hated when the propaganda a couple years ago was Allen was better than Mahomes, when no one thought that was true, but the media was trying to make it seem like that. So for that reason, I have to put Buffalo at 2. I think here, I'm going to defend myself a little bit. I think jumping through tables is sick. All right. Bills Mafia does look cool to be a part of. But man, there are some bad Bills fans out there that just drive me nuts. So Bills got to be at number 2 for that reason.
And number 1.
This one I don't even need to explain this one. Like, if you're an Iowa fan, you hate this team. If you're an Iowa State fan, you hate this team too. I feel like this goes both ways. But Nebraska's the team that every year thinks that they're gonna make a bowl game or do something cool, and I still hear about the greatest 3-win team of all time. Woo! You won 3 games. So for that reason, and just the fact that Nebraska fans are annoying every year. Oh, this is their year. Granted, they are looking better this year. I won't lie. Like they have been. This is the best Nebraska's looked in probably 7 or 8 years.
Oh no, way more than that. They haven't been good since Pelini's been fired.
Well, I guess I how long's been Pelini been fired? I thought it was only like 7 or 8 years ago.
I thought he got fired in 2014.
Oh man, hold on.
Let's look.
Regardless, that's like the last time Nebraska's been really good, and the last time they've been a contender for anything was the year that they lost to Texas in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, he got fired in 14.
Which that way I think has already been 15 years or 16 years. But yeah, that's my list. You got to do some things. You got to do some bad things to have me as an Iowa fan or Chiefs fan or whatever to get on this list. But Nebraska, you are my most hated team.
Respect, man. Respect. Nebraska's not. Nebraska is not on my top 5. I'm not gonna lie. And
I think I know a few. I might know a few of your teams.
Yeah, you're gonna like number 1. Let's just say that.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so number 5, Dallas Cowboys. I hate that every year, no matter what. Granted, did I pick them before I even started? Did I pick them to make the NFC Championship game? Yes, I picked them this year to do that. I haven't done that in years past. I did that this year because I legit thought that they had a good team to do that. The media every year talks about how the Dallas Cowboys should be making the NFC Championship game or even making the freaking Super Bowl. I mean, when's the last time you've heard them not being a legit contender according to ESPN, Fox Sports, or CBS? Legitimately, even with Romo and when they went to Dak, it was right away like, oh, this team, they're going to win a Super Bowl at some point. And it's just annoying, which makes it hard to even root for some of those guys, even though I actually do like a lot of their players. I love that. I love that meme.
I know they won on Thursday, but I still feel like I had to show it. That's the best thing that NFL memes does every year is it just adds the quarterbacks. And then the Kyler Murray part
is that Kyler Murray hasn't lost an AT&T Stadium in high school, college, or the pros. So anytime Arizona travels to Dallas, I feel pretty good. But I can't stand them. When they lose, it honestly brings a smile to my face every weekend because I know that just checking to see if you're still them boys meme will show up on social media. But Dallas, you're number 5 for me. Number 4 is Ohio State. I don't have a lot of like personal reasons to hate them, except for the second round game against Iowa State in basketball back in 2013, when
Aaron Kraft
hit the shot over George Niang, but at the same time there was a missed charge call. But actually, no, they did call a charge call if I remember correctly, and it shouldn't have been. But that's neither here nor there. I don't like their football program. When I pick Ohio State to win games, that means I legit think they're going to win, not because I'm following the media or whatever. Similar to the Cowboys. That's another reason why I hate Ohio State, because they're another one of those media teams that a lot of people hype up, and then they always disappoint at some point. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't like them. They just upset me pretty much in everything. So, Ohio State, Kansas.
Yep.
Honestly, they might be one of my favorite teams to hate just because the basketball part of it is so fun, because all their games are either in Big 12 play or like usually really close. So it actually is fun to watch them potentially lose a game, which keeps me invested. But at the same time, I hate when they win because I just can't stand them winning, especially this year in football. They thought last year was such a momentum shifting, program establishing.
Hey, it's a building block for next year.
Bro, you can't even fill out a freaking professional soccer stadium right now. Let alone, you're trying to fill Arrowhead, which was a big failure. I can't wait to travel down there for the Iowa State game at Arrowhead. But basketball, I love when they come to town. I've been to Allen Fieldhouse. I will say Allen Fieldhouse is the greatest college basketball home court advantage ever. But because of that, I hate them even more because I'm like, why can't we have that? So all that stuff, all the off the court stuff that's happened with their program over the years. And then when I do pick them to win in basketball, they usually disappoint. And when I don't pick them, that's when they win the title. So Kansas is number 3 for me. Number 2 is the Los Angeles Lakers. And pretty much enough said. As a Celtics fan, they have to be in my top 5. Number 2 for me, I love the NBA. The Lakers bring nothing but anger and pain to me, depending on the situation. And whenever the Celtics are able to beat them, it's always fun, especially now that the Celtics have one more banner that actually counts, not in season tournament. One banner that actually counts towards a championship. 18 is better than 17, and I love being. That's my favorite part about this ranking is I love being number 1 in the NBA for titles, and the Lakers are number 2 on my list because they're number 2 in championships.
Yeah.
Can you guess what my number 1 is?
So I have a few theories. I don't think it's going to be Iowa.
It's not Iowa. I really don't care.
I got a random poll just because I know this from other state fans that they hate the school. Is it Kansas State?
No.
Okay, that's the only other guess I had.
So my number 1 is any team LeBron is on.
Oh, man.
This man has brought me so much pain throughout my entire life as a basketball fan.
Wait. No, I don't have my LeBron jersey up here. I'd throw that on right now just to troll.
His time in Miami, his both times in Cleveland and in LA, I have not been a fan of LeBron once in my life as a Celtics fan. Nothing but pain has been brought to me when LeBron's on the court facing the Celtics in the playoffs. And so it's hard to do the greatest of all time debate because I don't like the guy. So I can't really participate in the debate. I don't even like Jordan, honestly. My favorite player of all time, and may not be the greatest of all time, is Kobe, which is funny because the Lakers are number 2. But LeBron, to me, he's a diva. He gets whatever he wants. The league, I feel like the league tailors certain rules to him to benefit him, and he has done nothing but bring me depression 99.99% of my life. The closest I ever thought I was going to get of feeling happy about a LeBron situation is when Jason Tatum dunked on him in the Eastern Conference Finals. That was the closest I have ever gotten in terms of having hope of beating LeBron in the playoffs, because that dunk just, I felt like was going to signify the passing of the torch of the Eastern Conference, which you could make an argument it kind of was, but the Celtics didn't come out on top on that one. But yeah, any team LeBron is on, I will cheer against. And there are very, very few situations where I would ever be like, yeah, I want the Lakers to win. And that would be if LeBron was on any team not named the Lakers.
So then I gotta follow up with this. So do you currently still hate Miami and Cleveland? Or do you just kind of
I do hate Miami.
Yeah, that's true.
Miami is probably like in my top 10 of teams I hate just because of the amount of times we played them in general. And their fans are annoying. They're the Buffalo Bills for me when in terms of like fan bases, because their fan base on Twitter is just so annoying. They think everything is, they get one player. Oh, title. They got Terry Rozier. Did I think Terry was going to help them? Yes, I really did. But like Terry Rozier is a good example. Trying to think of, they lost some key players and they're like, oh, we don't need them. Or
yeah,
it's just annoying. And my favorite play of all time will always be game 7 at Miami when Jimmy Butler thought he could be Steph Curry and do a pull-up 3 in transition and absolutely bricked it.
A career like 34% three-point shooter, might add.
So Miami is definitely in like my top 10-ish. Iowa would probably be in my top 10. I honestly kind of like the Iowa State rivalry to the point where I don't hate them. If I hate them, it's actually probably more their coaches than it is anything else. More specifically, coaches based off of performance, because I do think Iowa could be really good at certain programs. They just need to maybe look at their program as a whole. But I'm not going to give out names or whatever.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's it can be left unsaid.
Yeah. So my top 5 for most hated teams, any team LeBron is on is number 1. Lakers number 2. So 1 and 2 are basically the same thing right now.
Yeah.
Kansas, which is funny because one of my favorite players of all time, a lot of my favorite players have come from Kansas for basketball. Ohio State, screw Aaron Kraft. And then the Dallas Cowboys. Aaron Kraft was on the TBT team for Ohio State a couple years ago, and I literally watched the game just to root against the guy. And it was like 6 years after he's been gone from Ohio State. That's how much pain he brought me.
Wasn't Aaron Kraft in college for like a really long time?
It felt like it. He felt like
kind of like the Perry Ellis.
He did. It did. It's just crazy. And then Dawson's top 5 was Phillies at any Philadelphia team at 5, Iowa State at 4, Michigan at 3, Buffalo at 2, and Nebraska at 1.
Yeah, Nebraska. My tier, so like 2 through 5 are like here, like they're wall neck and Nebraska. No one's topping them.
The reason Nebraska probably is in my top 10, more specifically for football, basketball.
Their basketball team doesn't exist.
Well, it's hard. It's hard for me to cheer against Hoiberg. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it like that, but their football team is annoying enough. I know Iowa State
fans that cheer against Nebraska for basketball, and they don't care that Hoiberg's the coach, and rightfully so, because they're a little bit older, so they grew up with the Nebraska rivalry. For me, by the time I was watching, Nebraska was on its way out of the Big 12, so it's kind of like, screw you. Other teams that probably would have been close to my top 5 would have been like Texas, because screw them. That's similar to probably why people hate Nebraska as Iowa State fans. Screw them for leaving. Cleveland's not in my top 5. Top 10. I don't mind Cleveland.
Cleveland just kind of exists, bro.
Cleveland exists. I do hate LeBron era Cleveland, but everything else I don't mind.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else would even sneak into my top 10.
Philadelphia 76ers would be in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah. Cowboys and for sure Ohio State. I think I have more of a hatred for Michigan.
Yeah.
Because of Harbaugh and that whole era than I do with Ohio State. Because at least Ohio State, we beat them. We beat the crap out of them one year. Michigan, we had to have a walk-off field goal for that one.
Your list proves how good the Chiefs have been in the NFC West, because there's not a single NFC West in your
Raiders were close. Raiders were really close. And I don't really... So Chargers don't really care about... They don't really do much of anything. Broncos, maybe if you would have asked me like 7 or 8 years ago, they would have been there. Because when I started watching the Chiefs, it was always like Chiefs would be really good, and then Peyton Manning and the Broncos would just smoke them. Like, it wasn't even going to be close. And like the year they won the Super Bowl, that was always tough. Broncos have signed some of my favorite Chiefs players for no reason. Like Jamal Charles, for some reason, went to Denver. So that always hurt. But no, Raiders were really close of getting into my top 5. They were real close. They honestly flip-flopped them with maybe any of the Philly teams, but I hate the Sixers too much.
Yeah, I agree. Good list. We'll keep that up. We'll come up with a different topic every week or every other week. Looking at next week for NFL games, Thursday night's going to be a good one between the Buccaneers and Falcons. I'm looking forward to the 49ers absolutely destroying Arizona. And Chiefs and Saints, I feel like, could be a good one as well.
Yeah, what other games we got going on? Baltimore and Cincinnati, kind of a winner. It's kind of a season on the line for Cincinnati. And I guess for Baltimore. Baltimore's only 2-2. You drop that, you go to 2-3. Mm-hmm. That'd be a good game. Houston, Buffalo, both 3-1 teams. That's also going to be a good game. What else? Dallas and Pittsburgh, I guess. That's the Sunday night game. But it's the first week in the NFL that we have teams on bye week, so teams not playing are like Detroit, Tennessee, Philly, and the Chargers. They're not playing this week.
Yep. Well, we will sign off for the week. We'll be back next week with power rankings, recaps, our top 5 lists, and then, just player of the week stuff. Continuing to talk about the NFL season as we get into really the thick of things, as some teams are pulling away as contenders and others are showing that they were pretenders the whole time in the offseason at Cincinnati Bengals. But For Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman. We are the Sports Nerds here on the 515 Podcast Network. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment on our live feeds on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find the audio-only recordings on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as SoundCloud. And then we're on social media on everything at 515 Podcasts. So again, for Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Bierman. 515 Sports Podcast should be coming out later this week about college football. A lot to talk about, especially with the Georgia Bulldogs Alabama game. And as we are live right now, Gonzaga has made the move to the Pac-12, which is interesting, being that they were rumored to potentially jump to the Big 12 this entire summer, but recently has announced that they are going to join the Pac-12. Fun fact, they are the only Pac-12 team that doesn't have state in their name right now.
It's kind of cool.
Which is kind of funny. I thought they should just change their conference to the state conference.
Now go get St. Mary's and then just have an elite basketball conference.
I mean, won't be the Big 12, but
I mean, it won't be, because it's like, for basketball, it's like Big 12. Would you put the ACC next?
I would put SEC, if anything. No offense, I'm not putting the Big 12.
No, I wouldn't either. Big 10 is just not a very good basketball conference.
Depending on the year, it's most of the time it's Big 12, ACC, SEC. Recently, in my opinion, it's been Big 12, SEC, ACC, Big 10.
I don't know, man. The Big East, because UConn just carries that conference.
I forget about the Big East.
The Big East has some crazy good teams because of UConn.
Marquette. Other good teams. Yeah. I'm excited for college hoops season. That's all I got to say. There's a chance that Iowa State in November is competing for a Big 12 championship appearance while also being ranked in the top 10 for basketball, which is not something I imagined 10 years ago.
Crazy times.
All right. Well, we'll sign off here. We'll see you all next week. Enjoy the games and make sure to like, subscribe, and follow any of our social media feeds here on the 515 Podcast Network.